Hi, everyone. We are getting ready on the hour to do our next Briden Farm Fireside chat. And I'm just going to take the next couple of minutes and get ready for that. And so if you're here, stick around. I'm going to be sending it out to notify everyone. Hi, everyone. It is Brian here from Briden Farm, BRIDN Farm.com. And this week on our Fireside chat, I want to share some information that I picked up while watching or attending a Zoom webinar that was sponsored by, see if I can get this right, CADA, the Canadian Artisan Dairy Alliance. And you can find them online at artisandairy.ca. Encourage you to go there, have a look at their information, join the campaign to legalize raw milk here in Canada. Probably won't be producing much raw milk here at Briden Farm in the near future, but this is an issue that has been near and dear to my heart for a number of years. And I guess maybe one of the biggest questions for me today is, why is Canada the only G7 country that has it totally outlawed to produce or to sell, not to produce, because I can produce, or our goods or cattle can produce it. I can drink it if it comes from my own animals, but I can't sell it. And like I said, we're not big enough to worry about selling it. But even before I ever had animals of my own, I drank raw milk because there are a lot of benefits to that. Might touch on a little bit of that, but do your own research, or it might be a topic for another time. G7 countries include the US, the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Italy, Canada, and Japan. And Canada, for some reason, is the only G7 country that has it totally illegal for the sale of raw milk. So it's just kind of, why, I guess. And yesterday I had the opportunity. Hi, Anna. Hi, Skip on Fireside. And I'm also broadcasting over on the Wisdom app. And I see we have a few people over there as well. So that's great. And let's see, who do we have on Wisdom? We have Wisdom Wednesday, Craig Rowe, Travis Hall, Violetta, Fake Imposter. Actually, I'm reading the wrong list. There's Daryl. This is the right list. Daryl with the dashes, Christopher John Martins, Angela Lovely, the Fake Imposter, and Marcy Ann. I was looking at my notifications. Sorry. That's what happens when you do things live, right? Anyway, yesterday, listening to a webinar, Zoom meeting, sponsored by the Canadian Artisan Dairy Alliance with guest speaker Mark McAfee. Mark is the largest raw milk farmer in the U.S. and founder of the Raw Milk Institute. Definitely an education, and he definitely knows his information. People will tell you, government will tell you, that it's a safety issue. Well, it's not, in a sense, in that the safety issue has been addressed. The little bit about the Raw Milk Institute. They're a nonprofit in the U.S., California, I believe. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's California. 501c3, founded in 2011. Their mission is to improve the safety and quality of raw milk and RAMI for short, the Raw Milk Institute, has established raw milk standards. They help train thousands of farmers internationally and are listed 35 farms in the US and in Canada, which is interesting. Raw milk. Few would argue that mother's milk, breast milk, is not beneficial. And when we compare cow's milk and even goat's milk, the raw milk, the enzymes, the biodiverse bioproducts, good omega-3 acids, lactose producing bacteria, B12 binding proteins, bioavailable vitamins and calcium, the phosphorus, the phosphate enzymes, and the list goes on. These are all active ingredients in both breast milk and cow and or goat milk. Now, what happens is once that's pasteurized, heated to the point of pasteurization, things like your biodiverse probiotics are destroyed. Lactose producing bacteria destroyed. Phosphate enzyme destroyed. Oligosaccharides are diminished, and so on. So when we do the comparison, raw milk is actually closest to human milk, and in many cases, goat milk is easier to digest and said to be closer to human milk than even cow's milk. So it's pretty significant. And then, if you're not familiar with PubMed, that is peer-reviewed articles within the medical community. And the Raw Milk Institute, or RAMI, on the RAMI effect on PubMed, 2 studies show that RAMI training lowers the outbreak rates and also results in low-risk raw milk. Is there a risk? Ask yourself if there's a risk with other things. Meat, for example. There's more risk and more incidents of poisoning from meat than there is from raw milk. Is there a demand for raw milk? An example of a thriving raw dairy. 21 million in sales and projected to be 24 million in 2023 in the US. 44% growth in 2022. 600 stores in California, 1,700 stores nationally with raw cheese and pet food dairy products that are FDA approved. Top selling fluid milk in hundreds of natural stores, including one I'm not familiar with, EREWHON, and Sprouts. And imagine 42,000 gallons of raw milk being produced per week from 950 cows. That's pretty much the operation of Mark McAfee and his production of raw milk. Pretty impressive. He says, and arguably so, I tend to think that it is freedom issue. I don't think he would necessarily disagree with that freedom of choice issue, but he says it's not the best way to approach it. Need to approach it from a safety issue. And what RAMI, Raw Milk Institute, has done is they've come up with a standardization and training for farmers who want to take it, certification for farms, and testing. And that testing, just to give you an idea, tests for coliform bacteria at least monthly. Testing frequently will depend on the farmer's individual ramp. Target a rolling 3-month average of less than 10 coliforms per milliliter of raw milk. And test for standard plate count at least monthly. Testing frequently, and a rolling 3-month average of less than 5,000 parts per million under the standard plate count. What I found interesting listening to Mark yesterday was that milk being produced for pasteurization, that standard plate count in the US can be much higher. Mark, I believe, said 100,000 as compared to 5,000 per milliliter under the RAMI standards. The raw milk standards that Mark and his organization are training farmers towards. The reason that that standard plate count can be so high in milk provided for pasteurization is because they pasteurize it. They heat it to the point where they destroy, as I already mentioned, things like the biodiverse probiotics, lactose-producing bacteria, phosphate enzymes, and the oligosaccharides are diminished in the pasteurization. So, like I said to start, take and do your own research on raw milk. Thinking for a moment on raw milk and organic. It's interesting that back in 1958, Rodale was quoted as saying, "It is not organic to produce milk organically and then pasteurize it." I find this rather fascinating, to be honest. To know that there is the safety protocols, standardization training available, testing that proves that safety. And another thing that Mark mentioned, I wish I could remember the name of the company. I think it's Spectacular. A group of people from Ontario, Canada that went down to California about a year ago, I believe. And they went to California because of the ease and access of raw milk there. and they are developing an on-farm testing equipment laboratory that, if I understood correctly, is going to be given to or let use on the farm, where the farmer who now may be having to test their milk by putting it in the sample bottle, having that shipped to the testing lab, and paying exorbitant prices for transportation because it needs to be kept refrigerated, cool temperatures. Now they are going to be able to do their own on-farm testing, or should be within the next year, because it's already the technology is already there. It's already being used. It's already testing, but the distribution may take a bit longer. That the farmer will be able to do the on-farm testing for a fraction of the price, maybe $10 to $15 per. And so that is definitely something that is significant. And here in Canada, the Canadian Artisan Dairy Alliance, which is artisandairy.ca. Check out their website. Be sure to check out also the rawmilkinstitute.org. That is the site for Mark McAfee, and that is a US based site. But be sure to look at both of those. If you are in Canada, join the campaign. There's no cost to join. They simply need numbers. And what I mean by that is, in order for those in the political arena and in government to perhaps take things more seriously, it's just simply a way of getting a count of how many raw milk users, not producers, but users, there would be. So for me and my house, our house, when I took my free membership for the Canadian Artisan Dairy Alliance, I put 2. So if there's 2 people in your house, or 4, then just indicate that, and it gives a bearing as to how many people are truly interested enough to fill out a form and say, yes, me and my house, we would drink raw milk. And lots of valuable information on the Canadian Artisan Dairy Alliance website, as well as the rawmilkinstitute.org. So I encourage you to look into both of those. And I'm just wondering if there's anything else that I wanted to bring up about that. I'll say straight up, I'm not a commercial milk producer, because we do have some milk of our own from our goats that we use strictly for ourselves. Would I like to eventually get to producing commercial? We'll see. Perhaps on a real small local scale if it becomes legal. But way before I ever had goats or milk from my own farm, I was interested in getting raw milk because of the health benefits. And again, I encourage you to watch, look for, do your own research, and discover what those benefits are. Perhaps in a future talk we'll do that. If there is anybody on Wisdom that would like to ask a question, feel free to do that. If there's anyone on Fireside, you can come up. I think the only one here right now is Skip. And Skip, I believe I turned on your video. And there you are.
There.
Hey, I can hear you tonight. So you're actually there and coming through. I'm just going to check over here on Wisdom for a minute. If there's anyone on the Wisdom app and you do have questions about Briden Farm or raw milk or other things thusly related, hit the join the conversation button and let's chat. So there's the information that I was telling you earlier that I found in the webinar. You're just gonna keep quiet now, right?
I am.
For those that don't know,
I
over here on Fires.
I drank raw milk. My kids all drank raw milk.
Right.
And it was the best milk ever. Yeah. When I got my goats, we all drank goat's milk. And it was raw. And I miss it. I really do.
Well, be sure to go to that Canadian Artisan Dairy Alliance and just let them know, be counted in, I guess. No charge for it, and the more support that they get, if nothing more, it'll encourage them to keep going. They've done a lot of work, and they have testing and so on as well. I'm not as familiar with that. It's not as fresh in my mind, so I didn't really want to touch on it tonight. But there's testing beyond just what I mentioned tonight that verifies it, the safety of it, and how it can benefit our health as well.
Yeah.
Have one more quick look back over here on Wisdom. And if there's any questions over there, I'm going to make this a short broadcast tonight because I want to keep it focused on the topic. But if anybody has any questions about Briden Farm or raw milk, or perhaps how you can, access it or find more information about it, or has any questions, if you're listening to this live, you can hit the join the conversation button. And if you're listening to the recording later on, as I've already mentioned, the Raw Milk Institute at rawmilkinstitute.org is a great U.S. site and place to get started. And in Canada, artisandairy.ca for the Canadian Dairy Alliance. Anything else? Any questions or anything else you wanted to add, Skip?
Not really. I just, like you, I'm befuddled by the whole system. I know that tuberculosis was a problem, decades ago, and it's basically been eliminated. I mean, cows are vaccinated now, and we just don't have that problem. And so I think we're trying to somehow survive on old information or old problems, and I think that we need to get back in allowing more customer oriented production rather than factory or organized production. I mentioned to you earlier tonight that in Ontario you can't drive down a country road without running into several uh, cheese factories, cottage industry cheese factories, and they're all over the place, and they make the most wonderful product. Can't do that here, or at
Right.
least if you can do it, you have to hoop or jump through so many hoops
Yeah.
that it just isn't worth it. We tend to try and stifle independent business rather than allow it to produce. Um, we can still grow vegetables and sell them on a roadside stand, but I expect that to disappear at some point because we're not washing them right, or good heavens,
Yeah. I
you know,
think a certain amount of it has to be consumer choice. Certain amount of it is a freedom issue. If I want to come to your roadside stand or somebody else's and buy something, I should be able to do that. And
yeah,
all right, my friend. Well, I'm going to call it an evening. I'm going to look over here on the Wisdom app and just make sure there's nobody asking questions at the moment. I'm going to close out the fireside chat. Thank you for coming up to the mic and video. And
you have a wonderful day.
did I have more to say?
No, I said you have a wonderful
Oh,
day.
have a wonderful day. I
Yeah,
always have more to say,
don't
and I try to have a wonderful day.
don't
Yeah,
get don't get snowed in too bad.
right? Yeah, yeah. Here in Bear River, Nova Scotia, Canada, where Briden Farm is located, we are experiencing a snow event,
Yes,
which
indeed.
actually will be one of the few snow events that makes me happy because the old farmer saying is that if March comes in like a lion, it will go out like a lamb. And so having this storm hopefully means that we'll have better weather by the end
Yeah,
of March.
that'd be
So,
nice.
yeah, it'd be very nice. So, check out our website, Briden Farm, BRIDN Farm.com, and you'll find links on there to our podcast and other information. Have a great day, everyone. I'm going to end the show here on Fireside Chat.
Good night.
Good night.